Go to bed, boy. Yeah.
Accident victims like you deserve better. A husband and wife were rear-ended, and insurance offered them $10,000. We litigated the case and got them $375,000. Qualified expert attorneys can get you more. Call Zirkin and Smerling today.
Good evening, folks. This is City Voters Live podcast coming to you live on election night, primary election night 2024. Long day, long cycle. Got my main man here with me, Mr. JP, Giovanni Patterson. How you doing this evening, Giovanni?
I'm doing all right, man. How you?
I'm hanging on by a thread, bro. Hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a crazy primary election cycle, but and it's been a minute since you and I had a chance to get together and chop it up a little bit. So
Yeah, it's been a while, man.
I know you got to stop working so hard.
Wow, man, you know how it is, man. This Bidenomics, this economy, man. you think you're taking 2 steps forward, man. You didn't take, took a leap back.
I hear you. Hey, these dang day jobs is getting in the way of our hobbies.
Yeah, no, man. It is what it is.
So, yeah. So it all comes down tonight, and we see a lot of these. What's playing out this evening. A lot of it, you could see it coming down the road. Some of these races and how they were shaping up, and how the fields, came together, and some of the dynamics. What have you been paying the most attention to? Obviously, the mayor of Baltimore is our big ticket item, coming into this primary election this evening. But just what have you been paying attention to, whether it's on the federal, state, federal, local level?
Man, I think from a federal perspective, we all know what's going on there. I mean, that's not really that shocking, I should say. But I do think Nikki Haley didn't do as well as I thought she might have done in even though she dropped out, but you still have those kind of that rebellious vote that would trickle in. But you know that's been kind of interesting so far. But um, there's that saying that all politics is local,
Right.
and that's kind of been my focus on since starting peace and doing the things that we've been doing. So the focus for me really has been on a lot of things that's happening locally, and that mayoral race is very tight. I think it probably would have been worse if Theroux didn't drop out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or not necessarily worse, but it would have been more decisive at this point
Yeah.
if Theroux didn't drop out. And I think it's going to be interesting with some of the city council races. Because I think we if it goes a certain way, man, I mean, we're going to see a lot of people on the council of the same kind of thought process, and that's not necessarily good for the people of Baltimore when you have politicians kind of agreeing on certain things versus kind of listening to what the people are saying. So
Right.
you got city council president, you got that race in District 1, District 11. And then of course, you have District 3. I know you've been pretty active in that. And then District 7. I mean,
Yeah. And
there's
8
races.
well. Yeah, 8's an open seat as well. And yeah. And it really was what I've been paying attention as far as on the local race level is the fall or the turnout,
Yeah.
right? We were looking at the numbers, throughout the early voting cycle, and paying attention to it day by day, like how many transactions were actually coming through. I was posted up at the League for People with Disabilities, pretty much the entire cycle.
Yeah.
And hey Lauren, how are you? I see your text. Feel free to pop in if you want to. I'll send you the link if you want to join us. But as far as the numbers that were coming in, and that's the biggest early voting, I think it's one of the biggest early voting polls in the city. And we were seeing numbers that were a little bit concerning because what does that say? I mean, is that I mean, I know there's not a we have the mayor race, but there's not a presidential primary where we have a challenger against the Democratic president. But to have this level of ambivalence about the primary election was concerning.
I think that's but it's a specific to Baltimore City issue, right? And I was reading the WBL article, where Armistead Jones is kind of complaining about we do all this setup, spend all this money, these are taxpayer dollars to get ready for elections, and then nobody shows up, right? You got a city of 600,000 people, and what he's reporting, at least from what we see here, is 30,000 people showed up today as of 6 p.m. I mean, that's abysmal.
That's almost heartbreaking numbers, right?
Yeah, that's abysmal, but it says a lot, about that civic engagement piece where there's a lot of that political apathy where people do feel their vote doesn't matter. And maybe this is a, protest with their vote, or it could just be, that part. And here's another piece that could play a factor into it. I haven't looked at the numbers, but how many people are unaffiliated, right? How many people are no longer registered with the Democrat or Republican Party? Because one funny story, true story. But my wife, she's not to put her business out there, but she's an unaffiliated voter, and she went with the vote today and realized, like, oh, I can't vote.
Yeah.
Right. So there may be some other kind of metric there that's being exposed, where you have a lot of people that either aren't loyal to the Democrat or Republican base, and you have a lot of people that are just kind of disenfranchised by not being able to vote because they're not registered with a particular party.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's and those are things that I've heard discussed over and over in Baltimore City voters, the kind of the structure of the elections, whether or not, obviously this cycle was unique for several reasons, right? We had first time in our municipal races that we had public financing, right? Some folks chose to go that path, and then you have a situation where someone discontinues their campaign, but this is all new to us and it's happening for the first time. What are the mechanics around that? Are the laws written clear enough that define what happens in that situation? And when you talk about disenfranchised voters, you're talking about folks, and we're starting to see the numbers tonight, which would be somewhat material, to the results as they're coming in. I mean, 1,500 votes that were mailed in, prior to the withdrawal, and now those votes are thrown aside. They don't really matter. They don't have any way to be part of the outcome. And it's situations like that will cause people, and you say disenfranchised, but I think there's some level of people that have become disenchanted with being a part of the process. They don't see that when you say their vote doesn't matter, that means I think it could be interpreted as their vote doesn't. They don't feel like their vote is going to have any meaningful change in the way that they want to see it.
Absolutely.
And that's almost like, when you think about, unemployment and something like that, things like that, we say, well, they don't count the people who aren't looking for jobs in the unemployment number, right? They've fallen out of the workforce, right?
Yeah.
So they're all right. So we're only going to count the people who are actually looking for jobs that can't find one, right?
Yeah.
But they float out those numbers. These people aren't even looking for jobs. So you have people register because they have a driver's license, and it's just so easy to be registered. But are they really looking to be involved in the political process anymore? Because they just are not seeing. They don't think that their vote will ever actually mount or equate to any meaningful changes that they want to see.
Absolutely. And we do have a lot of efforts to increase the turnout and those type of things. And it seems like I don't know, it just seems like every effort to turn out more voters seems to, decrease the amount of voters that turn out. I mean, I don't know how easy it is to vote nowadays. I mean, you got the mail-in ballots, you got early voting, you got election day, but with all these opportunities to vote, it seems like people are still, again, I don't know what it is. It's this phenomenon where I don't know. I'm an advocate for having voting day, and have that kind of early voting as necessary. It's just part of the duty of being a citizen, and I think a lot of the spirit of the civic process has been lost because of just all the avenues of I don't. It's just because I'm not sitting here trying to say make voting harder, right? And I don't want that to be misconstrued.
Yeah.
But what I am suggesting is that we have more avenues now, more now than ever, to vote, and it seems like the turnout is less now than ever.
Yeah.
And I think there's a significant number of factors for that. But when it comes, I'm still a big participant in the election day process. I voted today. I went to my polling location and voted today, and that's how I've done it, except for 1 year where I filled in. I think it was a provisional ballot, and it's just part of that process that was fought for to participate on that day. And as a responsible adult, right? You try to set aside time and make time for you to do your civic duty. And if you know you can't vote on election day, of course you have that, that other avenue to do it. But yeah, I don't know what the answer to that is. I think there's a lot of different reasons on why people aren't voting, in numbers, and especially in Baltimore City, where the primary election is pretty much the election.
Right.
We should be seeing, a larger turnout than we do.
Right, right, and it'd be interesting if anyone actually invested any time and the cost, really willing to absorb the cost to do any type of polling to understand is why didn't you get involved? And as you said, that there's so many, like now with COVID, the absentee ballots used to be about 2 or 3% of the total vote. Now we're seeing they're not even called absentee ballots anymore; they're called mail ballots, right? Because what we saw with the last election cycle was the ability for people to elect to permanently receive their ballot by mail for every election going forward. Myself being one of them. And when we pulled the numbers, and this is a very, a small sample size, but we were looking at one particular district in the city where typically, it might get about 10,000 to 11,000 votes, in a primary election, where there was, I believe, better than 2,700 people, individuals who said, mail me my ballot permanently.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So you go from a situation where it used to be about 2 to 3% of the electorate that were doing absentee, to now having 27 to 30% saying, "Hey, forever going forward, just put a stamp on my ballot and mail it to me." Right. And and that
how many of those ballots are being returned though? Like that. That's another question.
Those are some metrics we're going to be looking at. I can tell you, just from that particular small sample size, by the end of early voting, let's say it was May 10th or 11th when we looked at those numbers, over 1,900 of them, had been returned.
Well, that's a good. I mean, that's over half.
And that wasn't even that was 4 days before election day. Right. And, election day, which one other things interesting is election day, obviously is May 14th today. Right. When you look at those ballots that have been returned, the earliest date that I can remember actually physically seeing was April 12th.
Oh, wow.
So now you have the election actually happening a month
before.
Before election day. So there's so many dynamics to what's going on. So when you think about it in that respect, how you said that you've made it so easy, you've made election day really from the day you start receiving mail ballots to whenever the designated election day is, but yet we still see a smaller turnout.
Yeah.
How it's not making.
Election season now. It's not election.
It's election season. Yeah, you're right. It's the election season because the season starts the day that the Board of Elections says we're going to put the first stamp on the ballot on these permanent mail ballots, and we're going to put them in the box to be delivered, to voters. And once those voters get them in, as you say, not to put her business in the street, but my wife voted weeks ago, right? I like to hold my ballot to the bitter end. So at 7:14 this evening, I filled my mail ballot out, but both of us are permanent vote by mail people now. And but her election cycle was a lot shorter than mine. Mine went up to tonight.
Man, I think just for me, right, and this is interesting part of the election cycle, and you've run campaigns before, you've been involved in that entire process, right? You know the concept of the October surprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now when you have this election season, there's always that point in the campaign where a decision can change, and now that you've submitted your ballot, there's been several times where I've seen people say like, "Oh man, I've already voted. I can't change it now."
Right.
After they get some new information or what have you. And again,
or like your candidate suspends their campaign.
Yeah, yeah, like, there's all these things, and this is why, again, I'm a big advocate for election day because it allows the voter to get more information and to make, um, and I can't say that the decision before was less informed, but it does allow for more information to make an even more informed or enriched um, election decision,
Right.
at the time of election, right? I mean, to me, right, that whole election season idea, I think it takes away a lot because we know that sometimes there's things that can be held in the media if a politician becomes favorable with particular stations or particular anything, right? And they hold off as long as they can, right, to get enough enough ballots in or enough votes in, and then drop this thing at the last moment. And could it sway the election? Could it change? We don't know. But I think when it comes to just the civic process and being an informed voter, waiting until the last moment to make that decision to
Mhm,
me
mhm.
is just key.
And I think what you're alluding to is that when it was election day, let's just say, even let's go like prehistoric, before early voting even became into the picture.
Back in the dinosaur times, man.
Back, back when the hair on my face was dark like yours. So what basically what you're saying is everybody had to make a decision at the same time,
Yeah.
right? Or at least their final decision.
Yep.
Everybody's final decision was collected at the exact same time, right?
Yeah.
So just imagine you're playing a show, right? You're playing a game show, and everybody can make a decision over this range of time and have like different information be available to them to make that decision. But yet, you're going to pick your winner at, so it is interesting to the concept that it has become, an election season. And at this point, there's what can you do about that? Can you, you're not going to change it. You're not going to,
You're not going to change
you're going to change it, but, or you're not going to change the fact that people have all these different options to engage themselves. But like any other process, you have to look at it and say, well, is it having the desired result? And my guess is the desired result was to get more people to participate. But if the desired result is not the actual result, then what do you do about that?
Yeah. And then the voting rights advocates will say, like, if you kind of condense these time frames now, they say you're disenfranchising and things like that.
Mhm.
Where that may not necessarily be the case. I think more disenfranchisement is closing polling locations than creating a robust election day.
Right.
But that's kind of the campaigns and battles that will kind of present themselves if that is something that's taken to task at this point, where we're trying to condense the election day, go back from election month to election day.
Mhm.
We've we've opened Pandora's box on that one.
All right. So, at this point, we're starting to see, some of the results. The results are coming in.
Yeah.
I see even in the background on your screen there, it looks like someone's giving a little victory speech.
Looks like
So,
Zeke going on.
have they called it?
I don't know, man. You got some numbers you can pull up?
Well, yeah, I can tell you this. If they didn't call it, I probably, did. Well, it's been officially called or not. But yeah.
I saw Mosby was running last in those numbers.
Yeah, it did not. It wasn't looking all that great. So let's say, all right. So at this refresh of the screen, looks like they've got 27,000 election day ballots in, and seems to be, and with 3 people in the race, you still got a mandate of over half the voters. I think that's probably a pretty good time to give an election a victory speech, huh?
Yeah, Zeke Cohen. It looks like he's the new CCP.
Next city council president.
Yeah.
And let's scrolling up and see what we got going on here.
Look at this May. This hold on, all right. So look, there's no like people know who I am, right? And I'm probably Baltimore's most lovable Republican. um, but I will say, man, this Republican primary for mayor candidate, man, it's sad.
Yeah.
To say the least. First off, the turnout, right? What was it 2,300 votes. Let's call it 2,400 votes because it's 2,399.
Right.
Good Lord, man. Good Lord. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. 23.99. Yeah, that's not a very big number. Well, look at the election day results. Even I've scrolled up now. I mean, the city council president's race seems to be, fairly well at hand. But it looks like the election day results are. I'm wondering. It says it's 27,000 total election day results. I wonder how many results do we think there are? What do you think the final turnout number is going to be? It looks like 52,682 total votes so far in the mayor's race.
Look, they have about 82 precincts that need to report. Man, I think we'll probably see a total of 35,000.
135,000?
No, 35,000. Like, scroll back up. So election day. Right, so I'm just looking at the Democratic poll numbers.
Well, we know there's generally about let's say if we looked at 2020, I think there was probably about 140,000 votes.
Yeah,
maybe?
so
130,000 votes.
Yeah, so you're at 52,000 now, and 27,000 election day on the Democratic primary side for mayor. Right, everybody's voting for mayor in this one. That's kind of the big thing,
right?
52,000 votes total, but the key thing right there is looking at the election day and the precincts reporting. Right, you still have about 82 precincts that haven't reported. You probably have 35,000 election votes.
13 precincts in.
So right there, 213 out of 295. So you got 82 that's outstanding.
Got it. I see where you are now.
Yeah, so 82 outstanding. So I mean, let me do some math real quick, right? But 27,000. Hold on, let me pull up my calculator. Oh crap! Come on. So that's 27,573. I'm going to divide that by 213. This number. So there's an average of 129 votes per precinct.
Wow.
So if we times that number by 82, outstanding. So that gives us another 10,000 votes.
Another 10,000. You think we're going to push up on about that? If that's the number, unless and I can't imagine how many mail. I want to say I remember a number that was somewhat close to 130 or 140,000, total votes in the 2020, election primary.
And this is in the, this in the middle of the pandemic. This is, the 2020 was still pandemic times.
It was the beginning, right?
I mean, it's towards the end, right? 2020 started, 2019, 2020 started the pandemic. You still had people kind of fearful of coming out in 2022. And you're seeing larger numbers then.
Right. Oh, in 2022. Yeah. I'm looking at 2020 was was basically the beginning
Yeah,
of the
2020.
pandemic,
Yep.
with the last um mayor Democratic primary for mayor,
Yeah,
right?
presidential. Yeah, presidential. Yeah.
Yeah. Now of course the difference was, we were electing a new president. It wasn't an incumbent president. Um
There was an incumbent president. 2016 was the electing a new president. 2020 is Trump was the president. He was the incumbent.
he was all right, let me clarify. We're talking about Baltimore City.
I mean, just saying what it is, like
Yeah,
he was there.
you're speaking facts. So let me clarify. There wasn't an incumbent Democratic
Gotcha.
president in the White House. So therefore, we had Democrats vying to be the next Democratic president of the United States in 2020. So there was a lively primary for president for the Democratic Party, in 2020, which is obviously going to drive turnout quite a bit. This year having an incumbent Democrat, as president is a bit different, and we're seeing it. I mean, we're seeing a turnout that is.
I guess I'm kind of, misunderstanding of, how that kind of plays out because, we know Baltimore is 9-1 Democrat versus Republican, right? So regardless of any election cycle, when it comes to the primary and presidential cycle, we know that it's going to be a Democrat that's selected. However, like when it comes to the mayoral run, right, it's it's kind of I guess concerning for me a little bit, or because I mean this is the election for the for the mayor, right? The primary determines the who's going to be the mayor in November.
It does.
So was it I mean I've seen plenty campaign ads for every single candidate, right? I mean Bob Wallace has the Instagram thing going, TV's Biddy had his thing going on. So you saw the Instagram, Brandon Scott, because he was the incumbent, I think he did a little less, but he did enough. And he did the little national run, especially, with the bridge collapsing, and, being able to rile up the base by flaunting the DEI hire thing. So he had that, didn't even really need to run anything. Sheila Dixon had, campaigns on or commercials on every station. I saw Theroux's commercials on every station. I mean, I guess the build up for the election from a campaigning perspective, it seemed to be there, but from a voter enthusiasm perspective, it didn't.
Apparently not. Because if you're telling me that we're going to have now everything, of course 2020 is a little different because it was all vote by mail. I guess we did have an in-person component, but it was very, very, very small.
Yeah.
And just about everything was done by mail. But as you can see here, in 2020, Dixon had 40,782. Scott had nearly 4,400 or 44,000. Between the two of them is 85,000.
And a lot of those came in overnight. I'm not gonna say nothing though.
Yeah. And in between, barring the theories here, I'm not going to code them, but barring the theories, there were 85,000 between the two top folks, right? And then there was another 40,000 between the second tier folks, right? So that's 125,000 and let's just say, TJ and the rest of them, Bernard, Jack Young, and there's another 18,000 there. So I mean, we're pushing up close to 150,000 total votes.
And this is the primary, right?
This is the primary. All right.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be but one candidate if it wasn't. Yeah, so you're pushing up close to the number of a number that's rounding the corner of almost 150,000 votes.
I mean, this is the election in Baltimore. I mean, this is the election in Baltimore, and it's going back to numbers when we actually had off-year elections. I know, I think the last off-year election was 2011, where I think 30,000 people voted. Right, and this is numbers that reflect a past time, right? And I think the reason why it was changed to coincide with the presidential cycle was to increase voter turnout.
Yeah,
and we're seeing the lack of enthusiasm.
That's an interesting concept, because this would be the closest thing to mimicking the off year.
Yeah.
Right, because there was no interest or no lively presidential race that the Democrats is to get involved in, right? So this is probably going to look the most like 2011 of any election, since its time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
2016 we had a lively, a healthy Democratic presidential election, because we were electing a nominee to go against Trump, right? And at that time it was Hillary Clinton. In 2020 we had to find someone to go against the Republican, the incumbent Republican. So this is the first time since probably 2011, right? Because there was no mayoral. The mayoral primary in 2011 lasted for 5 years, so they didn't have to do it again until 2016.
Yep.
So 2012, when Obama ran for re-election, there was no mayoral election.
Yeah.
Right. The mayoral election had taken place the year before. So that's an interesting point to make, is that this year is the closest that we are getting to what 2011 was, and why that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. But I mean, it's there. I think there's, but the civic engagement, though, man, and this is, I think, to me, this is the sad part of what's happening, is that people are not enthused
about local politics,
about politics in general, right? Because even if you weren't paying attention to the local elections, in general, there's some enthusiasm for the federal elections, right? I mean, I get that there's a Democratic incumbent, but you still have to run the race. You still have to win. You still have to get the votes to get the seat. And I don't know, maybe because it's the primary, and there's no one else, but I don't know. Maybe I think it'll be interesting to see what the numbers look like in November, as compared to the primary. But
I would have to imagine it's going to be substantially different. They're just, like you said, there was just no top of the ticket, and folks just feel, it just seems like they're completely disenchanted with pretty much all local politics.
Yeah,
even down to the mayor.
Let me ask you this, man. What does a Brandon Scott victory look like? I mean, what are you thinking in terms of a second term for Brandon Scott?
Wow, that's a question. I'm not. Am I prepared to answer that question? Well, look, I think that there's a lot to. I think there's. I don't know. I would hope that the mayor would take a lot stronger approach to being a leader. I would hope that the turnover, in top positions would stabilize. I would hope that 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 the office, the administration, reflects more of him than the second layer of management that he's put in place, because it just seems like it goes in a bunch of different directions, and everybody's kind of running their shop without any real top level oversight or a top level voice. But this, I think, without there being that top of the ticket federal or presidential lively race, that where we're nominating a new Democrat to run for president, it really kept the folks who have pretty much kind of given up on local politics. They just didn't participate.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's the folks that are going to participate no matter what. Right. And this election's gonna cause the city, to be reflective of that demographic, and not the city as a whole. And we'll see what we get. But the race, I don't know that race is quite over. I think there's some more votes coming, but I don't know how many. Right? There's we know how. I guess we could calculate how many mail ballots there are to be counted. But that we're still out there. But it certainly looks like we're going to have a very progressive administration in Baltimore City.
Go ahead and refresh this page. I want to see if we get any updates here.
If we've gone, as far as reported precincts.
Yeah, reported precincts, and see if these numbers have changed any.
I'm not getting an update here, but
okay,
let's go see if we have any other live.
This is the official numbers right here, right? That's where everybody else is reporting.
The Board of Elections here. So 26,500, 658, 21,695. We don't have quite a way to look at which of those 82 precincts are still out. And now this is interesting. So they've called the race. Obviously, it looks like $60 million is not enough to get yourself a U.S. Senate seat.
So Trone's out?
Looks like it. Looks like that race has been called. Obviously, Larry Hogan's going to be running against Angela Alsobrooks in the general election for U.S. Senate.
That bodes not too well for Mr. Hogan.
Well, there's going to be a race.
Out of all the races, that's one of them, right?
Yes, all the races, that is going to be one of them. Right. It certainly looks like Sarah Elfreth is going to be our next District 3 representative in the Congress, or at least she's going to be the nominee for District 3 in the U.S. House. And we're going to fix
numbers here. But that dude spent a lot of money on some ads, though.
I'm assuming you're speaking about the one person that spent a lot, and a lot. It's not even close to describing what was spent. But $60 million I haven't really done any, large scale homework on the most money ever spent in a Democratic primary for U.S. Senate in the state of Maryland. But I would have to say that, he's ranking up there pretty high
Yeah, that's
in all time.
it's a lot of money. But if he got it to spend on a campaign, then who am I to say what to do with your money? And a lot of it was self-funded, right? Like he had that money.
Yeah, I believe pretty much all of it. Pretty much all of it was funded by him personally.
So what's going on in District 1 here?
Oh yeah, District 1.
Mark Parker, it looks like he's up.
Right, and of course he was the
16 precincts reported.
Endorsed by Zeke. He said 14 of 16.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's where you can find out where you might have unreported precincts. This is right here in the local races.
Yep.
So 14 of 16 in District 1 have reported. 17 of 19 and 2, 21 of 23 and 3. All right, so it looks like District 5 is the one with
District 6.
A few precincts outstanding.
District 6 is the doozy.
Oh wow, yeah, District 6 doesn't have anything reported. Yeah. District 7 looks like it still has some outstanding.
Yeah, I'm hoping Tory can pull through that one, man. I mean, it's pretty close. I mean, so.
Yeah, that race is when you're talking 500 or so, less just over 500 votes there with look a third or fourth quarter of the precincts out there. Definitely looks like it could tighten up. So District 8 also on the west side. So it looks like the west side still have some precincts that need to come in. Looks like the east side precincts are fairly accounted for, right? You got the southeast is District 1, central east is District 2, northeast is District 3. The central part of the city is District 4, the north central. Let's see what's going on down in the
District 11 is really tight, man.
Yeah, 11 is really tightened up with 16 of 19 precincts reported, where the other 3 that haven't. And that was certainly one of the races where you had wow. Do you see what I'm seeing in District 12?
Yeah, that might be the only one that's like flipped or switched or changed seats or whatever.
Yeah. Guard. Well, I mean, it's obviously 11 is a little close to call at this point, but there's at least there's just 3 precincts out there that hasn't reported, but the total vote count there's not a big difference in the vote count there when you're talking just over 140 or 130 votes there.
All right, so can you scroll down to the judges? Because this is interesting right here when you compare it to maybe some of the other numbers that we've seen.
Well, all those other races that we talked about, you get to vote for 1, and the judges you're voting for 7.
Okay, so that's how that's calculated.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So each as you can see, most of them are about the same, and that's how many people voted. Total number of people voted for the judges are 31,895. But you can
Where are you seeing that?
the top vote getter. Oh no, 32,771. My bad. But you could
Okay.
like one person can vote for all 7 of those judges. There's only 7 of them.
I got you.
But you can vote for up to 7.
Okay, so that number at the bottom is kind of misleading. Then
I divided by 7.
Yeah. All right. So I was just looking at the total number of votes. Okay. Yeah. I get it now.
Yeah. So, but still 82 precincts out, and the interesting thing, and when I'm looking at this, is we know 14 is kind of central. Central and then west, a little tiny bit west, but not much. Doesn't go beyond 14. Doesn't go beyond the Jones Falls Expressway. So it's pretty much eastern district, right? And then you look at 13, which is out east. 12 is kind of the eastern side of central, and then south and east. And 11. So it looks like the west side precincts, the south, District 10, not a lot of votes there in the south, but District 10 is in the south. 9 is out west, right, for the most part. 8 is out west. 7 is out west, 6 is out west, and 5 is out west.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So those are the ones where the votes are still out. So it's going to be interesting to see how this, how the night evolves.
So I think we should take a snapshot of Baltimore City's population, its economics, and everything right now. And then even compare it to November, what the anticipation of what's happening, and then a year from now, see what's happening, man. I don't know, man. I'm prayerful,
I mean, I just it is absolutely depressing to look at it. District 3, where there was nearly 11,000 or almost 12,000 votes in 2020. It was either nearly 11,000 votes, and you look at it today
in the primary, right?
In the primary,
mm-hmm.
In the primary, right, where there were almost 11,000 votes in there. It's literally half.
Half, yep.
It's literally half. With all the precincts are in. 21 of 23 precincts are in. That number's not going to change.
No, especially not with the average of 129 votes per precinct.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, that is absolutely, abysmal. And when you have, that little, energy for people to participate, what does that say?
Now, we're in Baltimore City voters, and we're in the group now, and like what? I don't know what it says. I mean, because we've seen some of the kind of heated debates and discussions that are happening, particularly around certain candidates. But are those people that do have these concerns, are they voting? One, are they going out there? Is there kind of some misconception of, okay, it's just the primary, or I still get the pick in November, right? Is there some confusion about this part of the process? Like, I think it does raise a lot more questions than it does, than we have answers to.
Right. Well, I can tell you what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be going and it's always opposite when you're inside, when you're part of the when you're doing the elections, campaigning. you go in and you filter the list by the people who have voted, right? I'm just going to take a look at everyone that did not vote in this primary. If you're registered and you didn't vote.
Well, I think it'd be interesting to see the population loss. I mean, we've been averaging 500 to 600 people leaving Baltimore City every month for the past, 3, 4, 5 years. So it'd be interesting to see, like, it's generally not people who don't vote that are leaving.
Right.
If you're losing 500, residents per month,
loyal voters,
right? Let's say you're losing 3,000 voters a year, and you do that for 4 years. It's 12,000 voters. I mean, it doesn't explain the 100,000 delta per se, but it kind of gives some indicate. 30,000 is no small number when it comes to voting.
Right. I mean, because the people who left, I mean, they didn't get upset yesterday and leave tomorrow, right?
No.
They were disenchanted for a period of time and had to reach this point where they said, "That's it. I've had enough. I'm leaving." Right. So that buildup for them started. If they're leaving next month, the buildup of dissatisfaction had to have started years before.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're saying 500 people are leaving a month, that means that's the 500 that have reached their breaking point.
Yeah.
How many? How big is that tail of people, that are going to be leaving in the next year, next 18 months?
And some people maybe with the mindset, I'm out of here anyway, so I ain't gonna vote.
Right.
It's something interesting to explore. Again, there's no one answer to this, right? There's no that's the golden idea. It is a culmination of different things, right? Because people have different reasons for leaving. They may be similar or similar circumstance, but there's different reasons for leaving or not voting or what have you. The result is the same. I didn't vote, but,
right.
There's different reasons behind it.
Right.
But man, I don't know, man. This for this to be an equitable city, we sure are voting for a lot of people that are quote unquote champions of equity, I should say. Allies to equity.
Not equity.
Equity adjacent, there's a lot of people that say we wanted equity, but we're going to tell you what's best for you, so just listen to us anyway.
Well, they showed up to vote, but I mean, I can't. What I can say is when you look at some of the numbers, I think we were looking at out in District 3, there was 1,425 people that participated. At least that was the numbers we were given by the League for Voters. If you look at it tonight, you'll say 1,390. People participated in early voting, and when you look at the demographics of the folks who did participate, in the early voting there, I mean, we were showing like nearly 72% of them were African American, and generally of advanced age. When I say advanced, I mean 50 plus. It's interesting to see the outcomes that you get with the demographic information that you have, and it's interesting to understand how they arrived there. But it's gonna be fun, dissecting what we've seen here, and especially given the context that you've added to it for me, which I hadn't really thought much about it. I mean, I obviously knew that this was going to be a year that we're voting, And there's no top of the ticket for us, for us being Democrats. There was no top of the ticket, White House implications for us in this election. U.S. Senate, not interesting, but certainly isn't the president. I had added that element of, hey, this is going to be a 2011 election, right? So get ready for a 2011 turnout.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. And get out and vote, man. Just all I can say is get out and vote. Which isn't really happening right now, but
it did not happen. It did not happen. It did not happen. Like I said, you could see it in the early voting. It was a question of whether or not the mail would make up for the early voting, but it's certainly no, I don't know that anyone. I'm not sure that I spoke to someone that thought that the general or the election day numbers would be where they are.
No, again, I'm an advocate. Let's go back to election day. Get your absentee ballot, because that's always been a thing. If you need it, get the absentee, vote on election day. I think we'll see higher turnouts. I don't know, man. There was no shortage of signs on the street indicating an upcoming election.
I complained about a few of those.
Yeah, like all the signs were there that pointed towards election, and I don't know. People like turned the other way, and
I mean, you could literally walk down the street and just I mean, signs were. I mean, we were out riding around last night. I mean, they were literally just there's just no rules. There were no rules,
and there never is, man.
I don't know. I don't remember it ever being as crazy as it was this time, as far as signs just literally strewn about, hung on light poles. And does that? I don't know that. I'm not saying that impacted. I don't know if it impacted the race or not. Because what I am looking at is literally how many people did not cast a ballot. In this election, and I don't know if signs on the street would be the culprit of that, but
well, I think it reflects a lot of the policy and positions that have been taken, right? There's the law doesn't matter, and it's not just the law, it's like general decorum and decency and following the process. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the win. I just need to do what I need to do to win.
Yeah.
Or I just need to do what I need to do to get the votes. Forget people's rights, or forget people, like just general decency. And to me, I think that's what it speaks to, more than anything. And once you bend the rule one way, right, one candidate does it, another candidate's like, well, they're doing it over there, and I need to get my signs out too. What I'm gonna do? Like, I can't take and there's certain things like taking the moral high ground. Like, nobody's gonna see that. Nobody's gonna see you.
There's gonna be any appreciation for that.
Yeah, like, oh, you didn't put your sign on the public right of way. Good for you. So I'm gonna vote for you. No, I just didn't see your sign.
and here's going to be the double standard. Like what we saw was no shortage of campaign signs. I mean, for not just like around election day. Like, everyone knows election day, people are going to do that, like the night or two before election day.
Yep.
But for months, we've just seen litter about the city. and I mean, just spectacular fashion, right?
Yeah.
And the only thing I kept joking around is like, I really hope Trump does this in the general election. I hope he comes to Baltimore and he puts as many signs on public property
Oh man.
as Angela also Brooks did.
But you'll see them removed as quickly as they put down. You
Right,
will see
right,
them removed.
right, all right. And I'm just that's what we're talking about. Is like just the double standard, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a Democrat, but at the end of the day, I know for a fact that if a Republican candidate came in and put signs in places, in all of the same places, let's just say they just took that as also Brooks as a blueprint, and they just put their signs in every place that she had a sign. I don't know that the response would be the same or lack thereof.
No,
Right.
no, you see lawsuits. You'd see indictments. you'd see, man. You'd see. I don't know.
I hope they do it. You know what I mean? I hope that they look at that and say, "All right, well, that's obviously how you win in Baltimore."
Hey, man, you'll see some no names from the Ritz come out and talk about how Trump did something. Bro, I'm telling you, bro.
But you agree they should do it, right?
I mean, I just want to see the next lawsuit that's brought against it.
I want to see that. I want to just and just be like, if someone says anything, just like,
Oh man, I don't know. What's her name from the Ritz? She had an interaction with Trump at a retail store, and
yeah. Now she knows what to talk about.
Right. I'm over here cracking myself up, man.
It's late. I'm tired. I'm punched.
Oh, bro.
And most importantly, I'm just completely baffled by the turnout numbers. And I mean,
do we deserve this, man? Do we deserve this?
Hey, we get what we deserve. What the people give us, right?
Brandon Scott's going to win. Brandon Scott's won. Let's call it right here. Brandon Scott's won. Looking at these numbers now, I think he's pulled away. I don't know if this is a refresh. I'm trying to see if there was something else. I know they're calling it Brandon Scott's winning.
Oh, Fox has updated it. Yeah.
It's still showing the same number of precincts reported, but
from the Board of Elections.
Yeah.
Well, they showed a different number of total votes for him on Fox.
Yeah, right now it's like 26,000. So he's at 50.6% versus 41.8% for Sheila.
Well, they're showing an updated number of total votes on Fox. I'm not sure where they're ahead of the Board of Elections on this one.
But how? Where would they get the numbers from? I'm confused.
It's a good question. Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe the Board of Elections website is just a little behind, a little lag.
They got a guy. they got a guy down there.
Yeah, but it certainly looks like all of our they definitely must have somebody down there.
Look, I maintain Brandon Scott is probably the luckiest mayor that we have. He started his campaign with don't shoot the messenger on this one. He got, he started with COVID, and his kind of halftime show was the bridge collapse. And, I'm not saying that, that tragedy of the bridge collapse was, by design per se or anything like that. But he definitely benefited from the recognition. Like he didn't really have to campaign after that, especially all he had to do was respond to some trolls on Twitter. To say that he was the DEI hire. That was his campaign to win this election. There's no metric in which Baltimore is better than when he took office. You can count murders, I mean, if you want to. However, when you look at the population decline, right? When he took office, we were closer to 600,000 than we are now. The rate of home ownership, the rate of businesses, man. I go down Fells Point, go down, any supposedly bustling area, and you see the number of doors closing. Remix just closed, right? Aldo's closed. The local oyster is closed. These places are closing and shuttering their doors.
Right.
People feel less safe, right? You have a hotline now to call when your car gets broken into. I guess that's progress. So when they talk about the police metric, they say there's less crime in Baltimore. There's not less crime in Baltimore. There's fewer opportunities to report it.
Or just right. Or opportunities report, or just
when as a citizen of this city,
right,
that if you call the police, either they're not going to come or they're not going to do anything when they come, crime numbers automatically drop.
Right.
So there's no metric in which the city is better than when he took office in 2020.
Right. So, I mean, if crime is down, then I guess if people don't call for service, then obviously it's not going to be reported, and there's not going to be any record that it happened.
There's no crime. If the police don't have the numbers of the crime, there's no crime. That's the only metric that they use to report crime.
If you would look at like how many calls for service there were, right? Because there could be 100 calls for service and 100 crimes, or 100 calls for service and only 30 crimes were reported.
If there's no police report, there's no crime.
No crime.
There's no like even you can count the car break-ins, right? They're classified a different way, so they don't count as crime.
Right. Yeah. But doesn't mean the break-in didn't happen, or the window isn't smashed.
And then as a person, right? My wife and I had our cars broken into, both of them. The people just walking up and down the street, just breaking into cars. You call the police to report it. They don't send anybody.
Right.
And then, so I don't know how crime is down. When I talked to the guy on the on the phone about this, like he's like, I forgot how many. Like, he's getting hundreds of not hundreds, but they're getting like 30 of these per shift every day,
right,
of reported break-ins.
Right.
30 per shift. There's 3 shifts.
So there's calls for service
of break-ins.
Right. But then no report of the.
There's nothing. So how is crime down?
Right.
Your insurance rates are going up. Your home ownership, your home ownership rates, homeowners insurance, your car insurance, all these rates are going up. That they don't go up in a
property still being damaged. Yeah.
Right, when crime is going down. Like look at insurance numbers and you can tell how bad it is. Call your insurance provider and ask for a lower rate right now. No, crime is too high in your area. Yeah, but the mayor says the crime numbers are low. No, we're getting so many complaints of break-in, burglaries, and vandalism.
Oh, they
have to raise your insurance.
Yeah, their claims aren't matching what the reports are. So.
I'm just saying, no metric, but but it goes into this, I guess, this ideology of what do we want Baltimore to be? And I think I can get into some kind of deep political theories, of what that is. Maybe save it for another time. But we really have to ask that question: are we a really true independent city, which is Baltimore is the largest independent city in America, or are we moving towards a more dependent city that's dependent upon government services? Uh, you know, uh, this crime, well, not this lawlessness, less home ownership, more renter nation. Like, what do we want Baltimore to be?
Right.
Right? Do we want it to be a place for families where you can grow, get a good education, be safe, shop, those type of things, or do we want it to be this virtual signaling place that says we're doing all these things, but the outcomes and the example that we have, like the fruits don't
Aren't matching any of it.
aren't matched. Yeah,
Right. Right. And but at the end of the day, if the if this is what we get from a democratic election.
yeah, it is. It is, and I guess if this is what we want Baltimore to be, that's what it is.
Right.
That's what
And,
it is. But where's the 50,000 people that were missing this election?
yeah, that's the question, the
What do you
$1 million question that I like I said, I'm not I'm not going to dedicate my life to it, but I'm going to spend a lot of time trying to figure out who was in right in the last election and who was out.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to try to figure out why.
Yeah, I can. My bet is this: you're going to see a lot of people that voted in the last election cycle. They're one of two types of people: just disenfranchised voters on their way out of the city, or the people that have already left.
Right. And
There's no way, to me, there's no other way to explain it. I mean,
right.
I get your point about, the presidential part, but that's not really been the focus of the local elections here, right? From a local perspective, right?
Mhm.
And you've seen turnout in other states, be much higher, kind of reflecting a general primary cycle. But in Maryland, well, particularly Baltimore City, right? Because I think the Maryland turnout's still a little bit more on par with general elections, but particularly in Baltimore City,
Mhm.
you are seeing a significant decline in voter turnout.
Right. Right. And, yeah. But this is the first time, and you brought it up. It is the first time that we had this situation where the mayor's race was the most important race in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Every time before this, since we've gone to the merging it with the presidential cycle, every other time was an important time for electing who the Democrat was going to be to represent us, in the White House.
Yep.
This time that was in this election, it was a foregone conclusion. And but like I said, I'm going to spend a little bit of time, and politics is much more of a hobby than it is a profession these days. And I'm definitely going to be spending a lot more time on my profession.
Yeah.
Now this election's over.
Back to work, man, because we got to.
Yeah.
Oh boy,
Leisure time's over. But but either way, yeah, I'm gonna wrap up. I am super tired. Been going hard for the past couple of weeks, and I'm gonna get some rest. It certainly looks like what is going to be the leadership of the city has has been concluded.
Yeah.
Obviously, the thing that's the disappointing thing is that it's just the number of people that participated, because what that really tells you is the number of people who have just given up.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, we talk about the recall and replace, and I think that kind of goes into, some of the like what would happen if we needed to do something like that, right?
Hmm.
And when you see numbers like this, it kind of gives you, gives you a little bit of pause to, like, do people really care enough at this junction, right? At where we are today,
Hmm.
to like to do that. And I want people to say yes to that question,
Right.
right? I want people to say, like, oh man, this, and like, I- to me, I mean, honestly, I don't know how Brandon Scott is reelected, especially with all the just from the general public I've heard about him. And but maybe he's a good campaigner, man. I did like his sign design. I thought it had a little bit of retro elements. Um, yeah, I did like that. But I don't know, man.
Well, I can tell. It is. I mean, obviously, the power of incumbency is a tremendous a tremendous asset. And
So we got term
yeah,
limits.
well,
But so just a reminder, everybody, term limits do go into effect this election cycle.
election cycle.
So anybody that's elected in
This is 2 more
2024,
terms. I mean, because of the term limits, you can almost guarantee there's not going to be anyone challenging anyone in the 2028 election. There will be an entire cycle of of races that are not going to have a challenger. It's the entire. I mean, why would you put that much energy into trying to displace someone? Most of these folks, except in districts, 1 and 8, right, and possibly 12, right, from what we're seeing. But in districts, in 3 out of 14 council districts, there's going to be a new face there that's serving their first 4 terms, and possibly 3. Like, we're not writing Robert off yet, but just yet, but it's possible, right? And well, let's refresh and see what we see.
So before we go, man, I want to ask you this: what does a city council person do?
I'm not a city council person, but I don't know. I wrestle with this because when I look at when I do something like I go to a hearing and I can and I'm there for 3 or 4 hours, right, at a hearing, and I know that they're doing these things on a regular basis, right, and multiple and back to back. And and a good council person, if they're doing what they should be doing is, they've got 20 or 30 neighborhoods in their district. They should be showing up to all of the neighborhood meetings, right? The council person is, for all practical purposes, it's a part-time job, right? Like they're treated as part-time employees. They have full-time staff, people that are full-time on their staff, but they're, for all practical, I mean, they're literally part-time people. I don't know. Should they be full-time, right?
I mean, I don't know. This one of the things that I guess I've been, kind of wrestling with, because the simple answer, I mean, they're lawmakers, right? In Baltimore City, they're lawmakers.
They're lawmakers. Well, yes, right.
So, but a lot of the time, from my understanding, gets dedicated to that kind of arm of constituent services, right?
Mhm.
So, from my opinion, I think constituent services maybe should be kind of generalized across government, because that's a function of government regardless of who the council person is.
Mhm.
And the lawmaking aspects are, and that's what made the council person more part-time, but because there's been a lot more focus on constituent service, like you hear a lot from Zeke's neighbors and that, oh man, like he did XYZ, or like, and this goes to that aspect of when a lot of politicians say people don't know how government works or how things,
Mhm.
operating, because a lot of it is, constituent services, and then because government now is so bloated, like knowing where to go when is can sometimes be a task. But a lot of those things I think should be ongoing and continuing, because they're constant things regardless of who the council person is, that need to be addressed. Whereas the council person themselves, are lawmakers and should be kind of debating on the merits and, practicalities of certain ordinances. Should we be repealing, like how's business develops, and there's council members that try to do certain things,
Mhm.
but I think the fundamental elements of being a council person and why it is a part-time position is because, at the end of the day, they're lawmakers,
The lawmakers.
and the
Mhm.
constituent services aspect
Right.
is simply a function of just a good government body that should be transferable, again, regardless of who the council person is.
Right. Right.
It's just, just a thought,
No, no,
on
I hear you.
the debate.
I mean, it and I'd love to see it be an autonomous lawmaking body, right? And not be married to, the executive branch, right? And
Yeah.
have its own, separation. So,
Well,
it,
I don't even know how you define that even further than, what it is, right? The issue is, it just comes down to what you can do with cronyism and ethics,
right,
right? What's allowed, and I mean, essentially what's legal and what's not legal is what it comes down to.
you're right,
So you can do a lot of things that are questionable ethically, but are still legal. And because you're kind of not even skirting the line, you're just staying on the right side of the line.
right. You're coloring within the line, but man,
Right.
that,
Right. You're able to
yeah,
get a lot, get away with a lot of things, right? So you get buddy with the mayor, or you get buddy with the team, and like, now with Zeke on the council, right? The mayor essentially has 4 votes on the board of estimates, right? It's just things like that, right? That um
not that they ever needed it, but yeah,
right, but it's just, yeah, it's just one of those things, and I agree. It is autonomous. I don't know what law or whatever, thing you create to ensure that. It's just a matter of, right, just having good debates, like just good, care, and discussing the merits, right? If you just jump up and say this is a good idea because Brandon Scott said it,
right,
right, and I like Brandon Scott, right, that's not good for your constituents. You have to discuss the merits and pros and cons, and a prime example of that is with the public financing of candidates,
hmm hmm
right? This is a good idea on the outset. Okay, so what are the risks?
right,
What happens if, right? And now everybody wants the root to return all the money, um, because he dropped out of the race, but
right,
there's no rules on that.
right.
Right? We
Well,
came up with this great idea.
yeah, I think they did have a rule on it. It's just that, because it was through and because of what he did, the rule didn't matter. Is became what they thought should happen. I mean,
Exactly.
like the rule's pretty clear. You return what you didn't spend already,
Yeah.
right?
So I mean, there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
There you
And
go.
and had he not endorsed another campaign, they probably would never didn't even talk about it about what to do with the money, right?
But what does the rule say? Like there's just, like, things sound like a good idea, but if it goes back to that all agreeable concept, if we all agree on this thing, then we're not really, um, doing the examination of what could possibly happen, right? So these discussions, and detractors are a good thing to help progress, society, right? You have to have that push and pull, the give and take, right? If everybody's on one side screaming and yelling the same things, right, we're leading ourselves right into the ditch, you
Mhm,
know.
mhm, mhm.
But it's
I'd
just,
be remiss if I didn't ask this, but or wondered this. I'm not asking. I'm just wondering this out loud. I think obviously one of the tactics or not tactics or one of the strategies of the not so I guess somewhat the not the Brandon Scott campaign, but I think a lot of the supporters was to try to take some of the energy out of would be Sheila supporters by painting her as the Sinclair candidate, right? Do you think that had any? What level of success do you think that played into making some voters disinterested and getting behind her?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean, there's and it all is based on the idea of racism, right? Brandon Scott has just as many white people, if not more, behind him, saying that they're allies, for black people as Sheila. The difference is that it's a rich white guy, behind it, but
Right.
as compared to a rich white guy behind a organizational front, a shadow company, which is behind Brandon Scott, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing about Sinclair, like they pack no punches about, or they don't hide anything, right? It's like, all right, yeah, we support it, and we're gonna run Sheila ads, and we're gonna have her on every week, and we're gonna do it, in your face, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no, they don't punch any, they don't hold any punches, right? They tell you who they are,
Right.
And whether you like it or not, that's I think that's up for people to make the decision for themselves. But it is a valuable tactic for the time until
Mm-hmm.
people realize what the truth is.
Right. I mean, this seems to be part of a typical playbook, which I've seen play out, multiple times as I observe, things that happen, especially in the group, where there's a couple of things that a person can be, when they're trying to be demonized, and one of them is that you're backed by Sinclair. Whether you've ever received a check from Sinclair or you have any affiliation with them or not, it's just some type of it's a stigma that they try to put on you, and for whatever reason, like by saying you're have anything to do with Sinclair is automatically supposed to make you a bad, negative, mean boogeyman, right? Type of deal.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I get called all the time,
I don't care, because number one, I know the truth, number one, and number two, I don't mind Sinclair at all, right? Like, I have no issue with that. It's like you're calling me a WJZ guy, right? It's so different. I don't have any bad feelings toward WJZ. I don't have bad feelings toward Sinclair. So, but for some reason, they think that that's some type of effective way of delegitimizing.
Well, it is. I mean, you can't fault them for it, because it is an effective way, right? You look at the results, look at some of the things, that if it didn't work, right, people like Brandon Scott or Ryan Dorsey wouldn't be saying these things over and over, right?
Right.
Ryan Dorsey has a personal mantra where if it's Fox 45 or anybody just related to Sinclair, he's not going to talk to them, right? And people cheer on, and here's the other, like there's certain things like people really should understand, right? I've been reading a lot of Karl Marx lately, and so some other things. Color Communism, Common Sense is probably one of the biggest books I always recommend. But they're in the struggle for the struggle's sake, not to bring about really any meaningful positive change, but it's just to say there's a boogeyman, and I'm always going to fight the boogeyman, right? And there's a lot there's some, like, people gravitate towards that because the underdog story, right? oh man, there's the underdog. Let's it's revolution for revolution's sake.
A villain has to exist.
Right? That's all it is, right? But then when you really start, when you really examine the things that matter, right? How are my schools doing? Are they better now than they ever been, or like have things been better? How's home ownership? Is it better now than a few years ago? What's that look like? How's the economy? Is it better now, like really better, not just with the cherry picked numbers that the politicians give you, but for you, your pockets? Is it, are more grocery stores opening up in your neighborhood, or are they closing down? Are more restaurants and places to go opening up in your community, or are they closing down? Are you sending your kids outside to play more now, or are you keeping them inside to make sure they're safe and stay home? Like, when you ask those particular questions, oh, he's a Fox 45 candidate. Oh, he's Sinclair. That stuff no longer matters.
Right.
But we don't have enough people asking those questions because of the virtual signaling and struggling for struggle's sake, or revolution for revolution's sake. That's what goes on right now.
And it doesn't appear to be an end in sight.
But it depends.
It doesn't appear to be an end in sight, right? Because now, like I said, I think 2028 is going to go pretty, largely. Who's going to? Why would you challenge someone that's got one more term? Like you wait one more term, and the entire council is going to open up. Pick a race. Pick your spot in the city you want to run.
Look, here's the thing, man. I said back in 2020 when I was running for city council president, I think there is a plan, and I'll send you this video later, and you can watch it. It's like a 10-minute video. I was rambling, but I do think there is a plan to essentially empty out Baltimore City, right? To do the regentrification, and we see it now, right? I think the plan, and look, and I'm say this openly, I have no particular evidence of it, but the trends tend to go in this particular direction. So you get Baltimore City down to about 350,000. You only have the people that agree with you as your voters, and they're going to vote for you. They're going to vote for the same things over and over again. And now you're starting to bring in a different class of people, and you're going to see it be the uber rich and the super poor. There's not going to be a middle class in Baltimore City.
Well, I mean, you said you don't have any proof of that, but when we look back at the policies that have taken place, and at times when they've torn down public housing, and in other moments where they've taken large swaths of African American families through federal programs and whatever, however they packaged them and labeled them, but they took. At one point, I read an article from 2015 by Doug Donovan where they took 10,000 people, 3,100 families, mostly single mothers, but it was about 7,000 children involved, right? And took city money, provided them by the federal government, and bought properties for them in other counties around the state. Mm-hmm. They did it on the hush hush. It was like they actually snickered about the fact that it was hush hush. They didn't want anybody to really know about it. But when you think about 7,000 children who were purposely moved out of Baltimore City to give them a better opportunity, that's still, what do we get? 16,000 per head students from the public school?
No, 21,000.
Is it 21,000? I keep hearing different numbers, but let's just say the number I have in my head right now is 16,000.
So let's say it is, yeah.
7,000 children. That's $112 million a year out of our school system, right? 7,000 children is, Poly's 1,600 kids, right? That's 4 Polys in a small charter school. Gone, poof, no longer here. And $112 million a year out of our school budget because they're no longer, enrolled in most of those kids are probably enrolled in Baltimore City public schools. So over five. I mean, that article is 9 years old that I read, right? So
Yeah.
over those 9 years, it's over $1 billion that's just gone. And we wonder why everybody says, oh, our schools are underfunded. No, we're actually taking our revenue generators and shipping them out of the city. And that was just one small snapshot in time in 2015 of that program. I'll send you the article.
Yeah. I mean,
But as I started asking questions about that program, I learned that there were more. So the amount of children that we've taken and families that we've taken and using actual city tax dollars to do, some city money to do it, and buying these properties, we give them typical playbook. We give the money to nonprofits, right? Now it's in the black hole.
Yep.
The nonprofits go out and acquire the properties.
Yep.
They acquire the properties all over the place, and they ship the families off. And then the revenue's it's sucked out of our school system. So, right. So we're not underfunded. We're just like, as you said, we're down the number of heads in the city. So if you're getting 16,000 per head, and you used to have whatever number plus this 7,000, and now you just got that number, that's going to be a hit, right? You still have all the same bills. You still have all the same teachers. You still have all the same benefits that need to be paid. You still have you didn't do anything with your cost.
Yep.
You took 7,000 revenue generators and shipped them off. And it's when you start to add those things up in those types of programs, those things that but if you start to talk about them, right, you're backed by Sinclair, right?
I say, man, I say this, man. The truth is the truth is a conservative talking point, right? Whenever you start saying 2 + 2 is 4, but the Big Brother said 2 + 2 is 5, you need to go to room 101.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You're out of line. Do math.
As soon as you start doing that, man. But I just pray, man. Because when you see the world differently internally, that's when you change, the world around you changes. So I'm a big, personal philosophy person. That's why I try not to let a lot of this stuff, get to me. But at the same time, I want my family to be safe. I want my kids to be able to get an education. And that's why, particularly I speak up. We had the lawsuit and all those things, like those type of things going. And I love Baltimore, right? I want to see Baltimore thrive. And I think other kids should have the opportunity to succeed. I think families should be able to be safe in the city, and I think, you should be able to drive down the street without, you worrying about somebody running a red light, because we just have general respect for each other. So that's, why I get involved and care about the political process and those type of things. But, again, back to the personal philosophy of things, right? Yeah, I try to keep things in perspective and not allow things to bother me too much.
Right. Well, I'm not going to go as far as to say that much of anything bothers me, but I just at the same time, I'm just trying to look at the long tail, and maybe there's a plan for it that's heretofore unbeknownst to me, but I'd love to see it come together quicker and more visible, because to me it literally has me in a quandary, and I just
man, God's always got a plan. That's all I'm gonna say, man.
Yeah,
we don't understand it sometimes, and we all got to play our part in this little movie. But
yeah, maybe it's not for me to understand, but whatever it is, the voters that did go to the polls today, they spoke, and what we have is what we have, and it's at least what we're going to have in my estimation for the next 8 years, but possibly 4.
We'll see. All right, so we have a lot more precincts that have reported. I'm gonna just Yeah, 293 out of 95 reporting. Yeah, Brandon Scott 50% to 41%. Sheila.
Let's see if I can refresh.
Yeah, Zeke Cohen 49%.
19 of 19 reporting. And
Eric, they're gonna recount.
We're gonna have a recount.
They're gonna recount.
But I don't know if we're gonna have a recount.
No, they're gonna recount, man.
There's definitely gonna be some. I know I dropped my ballot in the mail today. Right.
They're gonna recount, man.
Yeah, maybe they've counted all mail ballots, but there's also mail ballots that were dropped in the mailbox today.
Yeah.
There's also provisional ballots. There's also ballots that our armed forces might have dropped in the mail today.
Well, for the mayoral race, I think there's a wide enough margin.
And we have a flip. District looks like District 12 is not going to be headed for a recount if it's I think it's more than 100 votes, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is.
Or maybe it's less than 1%. I can't remember what the trigger is.
But yeah, Eric Costello is hanging on by a thread. Yep.
Let's see. 8 is.
And if we go back to the District 11, I mean, 2 precincts could back to District 11.
I thought they all were reported.
No, okay. So 11, 19 of 19 is reported for District. Okay, yeah. So where are the 2 missing precincts then? Are they over the west side still? There's none there.
Oh wow. I really thought Bilal had an opportunity, a chance, and it looks like in the late ballots, Paris Gray has pulled ahead.
So bike lanes, here we come.
All over the place.
Oh, here we go.
I just hope they engage the community. In Middleton, not a problem. Look at how low these numbers are.
And District 4 had 4,800 people vote. I guess that's
I can tell you that my councilman had nearly 8,000 votes last election cycle.
In total, this election is 5,500.
Yeah, not half, but it was about 3,500 more votes.
All right, man. I'm getting out of here. This is a sad election day. I'll tell you that.
When I look at the results are the results. You can't argue with or be upset about what the people.
Well, I'm saying sad from an election turnout perspective.
From a turnout perspective, this is absolutely depressing, right? Because this is clearly telling you how many people have just completely, if we're not electing a governor and if we're not electing a Democrat to represent us in the general election for the presidential election, no one is at all looking to get involved with our local mayor or our local elections.
Yeah,
across the board. So I'm sure smarter people than me are going to be talking about it, but I certainly appreciate you joining us tonight and walking through this and offering me some perspective on what it is, like just what it is I'm seeing.
I don't know either, man, but
I will sleep better with the context that you have provided. So I certainly appreciate you, brother. And I look forward to getting back with you real soon.
Likewise, man.
All right. Have a good night.
Peace.